Kenyata and India were not alone. LaTia McCray-Pollard worked at the same company. Her personal family's journey when she was a child prepared her to advocate for herself and others. So, how did you get involved in the financial industry?
Well, I got into the financial industry pretty much because of my life, how my life played out. My life started out as an entrepreneur at a very early age. I went straight into that journey at 19. And right, I originally did not want to be a hairstylist. That was something that I just did. You know, when I was 12, 13, 14, I would do my own hair and people just started taking notice. And before you knew it, I had a house full of clients coming from
You
all
had a
over town.
salon.
Yeah. So I just did that on the side for fun. Went to college actually for psychology, went to IUPUI. And during that time, like my first 2 years, my father had an aneurysm and a stroke. Yeah, my mom had already passed away when I was 16 years old. So we had family crisis going on, you know, from the time I was probably 11 years old that I can remember. So I went into the entrepreneurship journey because I had to take care of three younger brothers after that happened to my dad. And I had to do what I had to do. I knew going to school wasn't going to pay the bills right now. I knew what I knew at the time, and that was being a hairstylist. I went to hair school, finished like within 8 months. In my first week out, I made $1,000. Back then, that was like, woo, you know, 2 days,
You
make
remember what,
$1,000. So I thought
do
I
you
was,
remember what year that was? What year was that?
that was that was in 2000. Yep.
Okay, so yes, $1,000 a week. You were like,
Yeah,
I'm in
yeah,
the
yeah.
money, honey.
99,
Mhm,
yeah, 99, 2000. So
mhm,
that was a lot of money then. And I did really, really well. Became very successful as a hairstylist, was able to open my own salons. I had two salons and a boutique. I was able to raise my brothers. Now they're all grown men doing their own thing.
mhm.
And I just became, I would say, I had a very great career as a hairstylist and salon owner. A lot of people respected me. I produced shows and events in that space. I loved loving on women, but I was also missing something. I was missing something internally. And that was, I knew God had more for me. As time
Wow.
went on, I wanted to be a voice for my mom. We never shared how my mom passed. We just suppressed those things at an early age. We was just pretty much trying to make something of ourselves all that time, but we never dealt with the mental
Yeah,
anxiety and stress of losing parents.
it's a
So
trauma at a
early. It
very
was
young
the
age.
trauma. At 16, lost my mom, and then my dad had an aneurysm and a stroke, and he's been in a nursing home for
Mhm.
25 years. So we've
Wow.
had a lot of, as brothers and sisters, you know, just
Mhm.
emotional scarring. And it was a secret not to even share in my family what happened to my mom.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. Do you
So,
mind sharing
oh
with us?
no, she passed
Yeah.
away with my youngest brother. She was already married, her and my dad. They were married by the time they were 20 years old. And with her fourth child, she went to deliver him. She was 23. She hemorrhaged. They cut
Mhm.
her the wrong way, local hospital here, and she had to get a blood transfusion. Come to find out 5 years later, it was infected with HIV.
Oh my
So
God.
she was one of the first ones. We are still yet trying to find out, was my mom the first African American woman here? But I know it was during the time, you know, when it was a lot of scare going on, you
Yeah.
know. So she didn't want people to know what was happening in her home. She didn't want us to go to school and be talked about and shunned because people were scared of how you even contacted it.
I
Um,
mean, when you hear it back in the day, the word
yeah.
AIDS, I remember when, it first came out and there was so much conversation about it, and there was so much stigma surrounding
Exactly.
AIDS and HIV. And so if you said anything, you're absolutely right. People were shunned. And
People were
I don't
shown.
think that is still the case today, but in the
No.
early stages, especially when Magic Johnson made his announcement,
Yes.
it was a very tenuous time for
It
the
was
entire country,
scary.
and the entire world. It was very scary.
Yeah, and my mom even kept that from her children. We found out a year before she passed that
Mhm,
what she actually had. So she was always telling us, it was either, something was wrong with my lungs. We would clearly
mhm,
see her go from this gorgeous, beautiful woman to this
mhm,
small, frail woman walking
mhm,
around the home with IV poles. We couldn't sit on the same toilet. We couldn't eat after her. So we
mhm,
went through a lot during that time. And because she
mhm.
kept it a secret, we didn't know why all that time it was a secret because we were
Yeah,
children, but we honored that and we never shared. So when I opened my last salon about 7 years ago, I decided to name that salon after my mother. And I decided
mhm,
to share her story, have a talk with my brothers because they were still not wanting to share as grown men. And I decided to break that generational curse
mhm,
of nothing happened to her that, was of something she did wrong. This is nothing we should be ashamed of. This is something we should actually empower us. And I wanted to break free of that. So I decided to start sharing more and more, and I became more free. So as I became more free,
absolutely.
I wanted to help others. I wanted to talk
Yes.
about protection in our community because we didn't have a lot of life insurance in place to
Mhm,
protect us. As
mhm,
children, we should have been able to bury our mother and then have my father not have that stress on him as a single
mhm,
parent to raise four children. And that's what happened to him. We were left with nothing. And then in return, as children, taking care of children, we had
mhm.
nothing.
We had
So
nothing.
I started down that journey of wanting to make an impact
Mhm.
in others' lives. And because I knew it was others like me, I'm like,
Right,
God, you
you're
didn't
not
take
alone.
I'm not alone. I'm like, you didn't take
Mhm.
us through this. We didn't go through this for ourselves. We went through this to
Absolutely.
share with other people. And when I realized that, when that empowered me, and I lost the desire to be a hairstylist. I
Mm,
I lost the desire probably about 4 or 5 years before I decided I just want to retire.
yeah.
So I got into the
What's the name
financial. Mhm.
real fast, what's the name of your mom's or what's the name of the hair salon? And do you still have it?
Yes, so Tony Elaine Salon, that's
Uh,
the name of her salon, well, the name of my mother's salon, and what's so ironic about that, all those years I would say, you know what? People are gonna know her name. Her name is gonna be shared. Their legacy is gonna be shared. I don't know how, but we
absolutely.
didn't go through this for no reason. So
Right.
when I met Kenyatta, I actually had just started getting into insurance on my own because I only know how to do things on my own because I never really been in corporate America.
Right.
I
You just
just
gotta
pretty
figure
much.
it out and make it happen.
Yeah, I know how to make it happen. So I went and
Mhm,
got me an LLC, went and took the insurance license and,
mhm.
did everything on my own. And I just named my business. And I
Excellent.
just said, hey, I'm a licensed insurance agent. I did that very easy. And I quickly realized, Tia, you don't know this area for real. You need help.
You need to get
Um,
a little education.
I need a little education. Like, yeah, I passed the test, but now,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
I
like,
gotta really get into it.
yeah, I don't want to do this on my own.
Okay, so how did you meet Kenyatta?
Yeah. So I met Kenyatta just at actually what's so ironic, Kenyatta was there and India. I didn't know India was there as well, but it's like
Uh,
it was just like a match made, a perfect match. We just
absolutely.
shared energies and shared
Mhm.
each other's business card. And she was like, you should be doing more than just insurance with your background because we was talking about each other's background. She said you should be a financial advisor because you have had the
Mm.
experience of finance and running your own business and being an entrepreneur. And I'm like, no. I'm still caught up in doing my own thing.
Mm.
And I began just kind of still doing my own thing there. And I realized when trying to work both of the business that I really didn't want to be a hairstylist anymore. And I
Okay.
called her and she
Mm.
linked me up with herself and the company she was with. And the rest was history. I
Wonderful.
decided to shut down my business like a couple of months later. And I was like, and it was after COVID.
Mm.
Everything had happened to my business that happened to everyone else's.
Right.
Didn't get the
Everybody
right
was afraid of it.
funding at the time. I
Mhm.
still had to keep the people that were working in my business, keep them happy. And I still had to pay all of the bills of
Yes.
that business without making any money. So that really just made me feel like this is the time to make a
Yeah.
move.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I end up shutting my business down. And then a month later, I got a call from Fox 59 and
Mhm.
they said, "We heard about your story and we want to
Mm.
honor your salon, your mom, your business for Black History Month."
How wonderful. How
So,
wonderful.
so that's what kind of catapulted me into the finance industry. I said, this
Mhm.
is it. This was
This is
all a plan. It was designed. It was set up for me to
it.
succeed. This is where I am supposed to be.
What I
Um,
love is that, even when this happened to you at the age of 16, so, so very young, so tender, and so traumatic to lose a parent at any age, but specifically when you lose a parent as a child, no doubt the struggles and the challenges along the way, you experienced them with your father going through the stroke, and then of course being the oldest and having to take care of your younger
yeah,
brother, you became a parent figure to them.
yeah,
So I'm sure there was a lot of just the challenges placed on you, in addition to, I'm sure, stress as well. So then
yeah,
when you talked about your mother becoming, her life, for it to have not been in her death, to have not been in vain, and for her life to mean something, and for it to become purposeful, for you to come to say that and believe it and to feel it and to want that and desire that, so that it serves as a purpose for other people, for you to be able to do a story, for someone to call you out of the blue and say, "We want to honor you and honor your mother." Did that feel like a full circle moment for you when you're like, you know what, I prayed for this and now
yeah.
it's here, it's happened?
I pray for it. I
Yeah.
would tell my brothers all the time. My mother went through this. She was a praying woman.
Oh,
And she was a prayer warrior. Like we was
my
at
mom too.
every
Yeah.
church conference.
Mhm.
We went
Every
to see
convention,
we was at every convention,
all the
we was
concerts,
at
the gospel concerts back in the day.
yeah,
Mhm.
we were in church all day, all night, like healing and deliverance services.
Yeah.
So once we did find out, we just knew she was going to be the first. So we were totally devastated
Yeah.
that she left because we just knew God was we've done too
Going
much,
to
God.
heal
Like I
her.
know she's
Yeah.
going to be honored. But I realized that God honored her children.
Amen. Ooh,
He
girl,
honored
we
her
got it
children
church. Through children, through the offspring, you
through the
know,
offspring.
through the offspring, and the word even says, train and teach your children the way they shall go, and they will never depart.
They will
That's
never
exactly,
depart.
your lives have been honoring your mother and even your
Absolutely.
father, honoring your parents. And, the word says, your days shall be lengthened.
They
I
shall be
love
lengthened.
they shall be lengthened. You talked about, getting into the financial industry and meeting Kenyatta. What was that like for you initially when you started kind of putting out your own umbrella underneath the bigger umbrella of a company? What was that experience for you in the very beginning? Was it challenging? Did you find it
Mhm.
exciting? Were you a little nervous?
I was excited. I
Yes.
said, "Look at this powerful Black woman."
Mm,
Um, there was no representation that
mm,
I had seen up until that point. I
mhm.
know even being a business owner, I spent years in the salon and running a business, and there was not a lot of representation in the financial planning space, even for business owners, even for Black
Mhm.
business owners. I knew tons of small business owners, but I knew they had the same issues. the same issues. I knew we didn't have a lot of protection in place. This is just outside of how I grew up and how we didn't get the knowledge of what we were supposed to have. I knew as a business owner, we were missing some key ingredients.
This is
And
generational. You're talking
generational.
Mhm.
We made a lot of money, but we didn't know where to put that money.
Yeah.
And it was going to affect us in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. We were not setting ourselves up properly for retirement. We were not setting ourselves up properly for if we got sick or ill. Most of the stylists that I knew could not take off of work. It's like they worked through pain, they worked through a lot of stress. And it's not just because we loved our job. Of course, we loved it, but we just couldn't.
Good.
We didn't
Right.
have
Yeah.
anything in place to
Mhm.
protect ourselves. So I
Not a lot of
wanted
support. Not a lot
not
of
a
support.
lot of support there. And I
Mhm.
just wanted to speak to those people as well, and be that people already looked up for me, looked up to me in the salons that I had. And I'm like, this extra piece would be
Mhm.
powerful for me. So when
Yes.
I met Kenyatta, and she was just very articulate.
Mhm.
She knew her stuff. She had an exciting aura
Mhm.
about
She's got
her.
a there's a spirit. There's a
There was
spirit
a
to
spirit.
her.
We
Yeah.
connected on that
Mhm.
go-getter, Black
Mhm.
excellence level, and
Mhm.
I was empowered by other Black women like that.
That's it.
Uh,
Yes.
it just spoke to me, so it stuck with me, and
Mhm.
that's the reason why I circled back to her. And then every time we spoke, it was like
Mhm.
we were just
Giddy.
like jumpy, like
Jumping.
yeah, it was just it was connectivity
That's it.
every
Yes.
time. And I spoke to her, hey, this is going to be powerful us as women. And I knew at the time she was the only Black woman at where she was. And she just said, hey, there's another girl that I have, and us three, it's going to be three, and opposed to just me. So her thing
Mm.
was getting other Black
Other people. Yeah.
people into this space because it's
Pulling
money.
other people in. That's
She
it.
was
Pulling other
pulling
people.
people up because she's seen,
Mhm.
and so often we hear people pushing others down.
Right. But
She
she
was
was unselfish.
she was unselfish, and I saw
Mhm.
that she knew there was money to be made here. She
Mhm.
knew there was a presence that was needed here.
Need.
She also knew that we could relate to our community. So she was very good at who she wanted to represent the
Yes. She was
community.
very clear
She
about
was
that, wanting to
clear
help
and
the community.
very smart about who
Mhm.
she wanted to represent. And I said I was with it as soon
You're
as
like,
I
"Yeah."
met with her. As soon
Mhm.
as I sat down and I kind of knew what this was about,
You're like,
and
"Let's
she
do it."
told me how much money she made in 1 year, I'm like, whoa, she
Well,
wasn't lying.
mhm,
She
mhm.
wasn't lying.
What
She was, she
what
didn't even talk much about herself, but
yeah.
I'm like, she did.
What was that first year like for you?
Okay. So I only last 1 year.
Okay. So before we get to talking about lasting for
Okay.
1 year, I want to ask you, why are you speaking to me and to the entire world about your experience in the financial industry?
Because I believe God put me here for a service.
Mm,
I am here to serve people.
yeah.
I am here to serve my community. I am here to serve women. That's pretty much, as I look back over my life, that is what I have been doing.
Mhm,
So anything that I go through, and I felt like it was heartbreaking,
mhm,
and it really is not a good representation of where we should be or how we should be
mhm.
treated, I'm going to speak up about it.
There are a lot of
I was silent for too long with my mother's battle. She was
mhm,
silent for too long with what she went through. It's like that pains me, and I know how much that killed me over the years. Like,
mhm,
I need to speak
mhm.
up about what's right.
As you're saying that, I was about to ask you, you were silent. with the situation with your mom, and that being silent is a trauma, is an additional trauma outside of the trauma itself of the death. But to know that you and the family weren't, you didn't feel comfortable enough to talk about it until later on in life, but you've been
Yeah.
holding that in for so many years, for, a number of decades. And that experience, no doubt, has compelled you to not stay silent as it relates to your personal work experience in the financial industry. What
Yeah.
actually happened? You were only there for a year, and
Yeah.
that's not a lot of time. It takes sometimes people a
No.
year before they really kind of learn the ropes within an organization.
Right.
But to stay there for only a year, what happened?
Hmm. Well, first, it started out as amazing. It
Yes.
was, I saw this as a gold mine.
Mhm.
I saw this as a way for me to, I already had this, you know, this whole legacy within the hair industry that I
Mhm.
felt like I was accomplished. I'm like, okay, I stopped right now. I feel great about what I did, but now I know I'm starting over. Um, and I felt like still my presence, I could still reach people in the community with
Mhm.
what I did before. So I came into this space, and it was a lot that we had to go through in order to just
Mhm.
become like advisors. And
Yeah,
I
like
felt
what?
like
Like, what do you have to
they
go through?
took us through a
Okay.
process of self-discovery, a lot of uh finding out who we are as
Mhm.
individuals, dissecting the way you think, the way
Mhm.
you relate to people. We had to do purpose statements, vision statements, read them,
Mhm.
get on a Zoom, and hey, in a couple weeks you're going to read them to like top advisors all
Mhm.
over the country. And it's like,
Mhm.
whoa, it's like,
Yeah.
this is a different life for me. I'm used to doing things on my own. So, but I like the excitement and the challenge
Nice.
of
And the
what they were
challenge.
doing. So I saw everything as a challenge, and I'm up for that challenge. So
Yeah.
I like running towards things that could seem a little hard opposed
Mhm.
to shying away from them.
Mhm.
So I came with all of that equipment, and um what start happening, I would say for me, was, first of all, I saw when I got there, there was not a lot of us.
No.
Immediately saw that there was not a lot of us. I immediately, and I was up for that challenge too.
Mhm.
As
Well,
long,
because the reality of it is most of
Mhm.
life, we're up to that challenge because we
Right,
don't really have a choice. So we know
exactly.
how to navigate all cultures, backgrounds, and environments. We know how to read the room and work accordingly, if you will.
Work accordingly, and it did not make me fearful. My mother, and I bring her up a lot because she prepared me for rooms like that,
Yeah.
at an early age. Although I worked for myself for many years, like I
Mhm.
still came with my spirit, and I was what they call confident.
Yes, yes,
They
very
call
clear. Mhm.
confident, like you're
Confident.
the
Boss
I was
lady.
called that all the time there. You're the most confident I just walked in a room. I didn't say anything or had to do anything. I
Your
didn't
presence.
have all the education that everyone
Right.
else had. But I came packed with a lot of presence, a lot of life skills, and a lot of resilience.
And
Um,
desire, and
and
desire
desire
as well.
and
Mhm.
desire.
Perseverance.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to. I saw India there, Kenyatta there. We were all through there, and it was a couple of other um, people that Kenyatta. She brung powerful people. Kenyatta, by the
So
way,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
everyone we hit. Every one of us killed it. We
Mm,
hit these benchmarks that they had for us, and we
mm.
just came prepared. We came prepared.
You
So
let
I
me ask
said,
you, let me ask you, did you feel as if when you say you all met your benchmarks and you were killing the game, did you ever feel at any point that you were not supported, or that they were surprised by your success?
yes. I felt that they weren't ready.
Mm.
I felt they
Assumed
weren't
that you were
ready.
not going to meet the benchmarks, you think?
Yeah, and they weren't ready for the presence. They weren't ready for the presence. Like
Mm,
I
mm,
said, hey girls, I'm doing this photo shoot here because I already came from a space where I was doing photo shoots and putting
mm.
things together. So I already put money into
Styling.
yeah, I put money into my marketing. I spent money on bringing, video photographers in and marketing me because this is my own business. You guys
It's your
told me
brand.
this is my own business and my brand.
Mhm,
So I
mhm.
came doing that off out of the gate. And they, wait a minute, you can't do that until you're a top advisor, until yeah, I start getting
Mm-mm.
that. I put a photo shoot together and said, hey, Kenyata, India, let's get together and do a photo shoot together and look powerful for the
Is that the one
community.
where the 3 of you all are together
Yes,
and you're
yes,
girl, that
yes,
picture literally says boss. That picture says power, it says resiliency, it says perseverance, it says we're about the business of making money and changing lives for the positive. Like, you can feel the energy through the pictures. You
yeah.
can feel it,
And everyone could at that firm.
but they didn't
They
like it.
they didn't. Oh, it changed after that. When the
Mm,
pictures start going and we start looking like Black excellence,
mm,
all on LinkedIn. Like we
mm.
were, they were, hey, we want to do a shoot with you guys, saying you made history, which we were making history there.
What is the history? When you say making history, what does that mean?
Well, Kenyatta had already killed every male, female, black, white, dog, cat. She had already killed, like as far as income, as far as
Mhm.
just how many lives she had touched out there.
Wow.
She had already been killing the game. And I didn't realize the level she was at until I
Mhm.
was in the space. I'm like, wow,
Wow.
she
Yeah.
is she's killing it here. But
Mm.
she killed it and she was bringing us in and we were all friends. She wanted all of us to elevate
All of
just
us
like
to
that,
win.
to
Yes.
win.
Mm.
And it wasn't received well. It wasn't received well. They now put her in the leadership position. And
Mhm.
after a while, they didn't want her to pretty much talk. The managing director did not want her to like befriend us.
So why do you think that is? Now that you have had the ability to take a look back, hindsight being 2020, why do you believe that is? Even then versus even now?
I think they couldn't handle the power that was
Mm.
packed inside of us. We all came from something. We weren't like 18, 19, 21 years old
For kids. Yeah.
coming into this industry. We were all women that were seasoned and knew who we were. And they were not used to this particular managing director was not used to that. He was used
Mhm.
to controlling
What
people.
about the white counterparts who were in the similar situations with you all in terms of the job and the responsibility and the qualifications? Did you feel that there was a difference in how you were treated versus how your Caucasian counterparts were treated? And in what way, if so?
So we were the only females there in that
Okay.
particular office.
Mhm.
So I realized, first of all, Kenyatta was being treated differently as a woman being in leadership. And
Mm.
I saw that just flat out. As far as my like compliance, they would go through my social media. They start telling me I can't share these pictures, because it's not compliant. They went all down like from 2019, 2020, before I even came to the firm, would question me about things I was doing, or
Before you even
businesses
got
I was
there?
running before I even got there. So I
Wow.
felt like I was now constantly having to like prove myself, and speak up for myself in those instances. It just became, it turned completely.
Yeah.
We got a new office, and the new office that we got, everything was pretty much exposed, open. The managing director wanted to know exactly what was going on at all times. That powerful photo that you saw, he reshared that. And this is when there was a time before that, but he reshared that and he put from devastation. Now, mind you, this is a photo that, I put together for the ladies. So the story had nothing to do. My story that aired, that everybody saw, had nothing to do with them too. But he decided to put from devastation. And I'm paraphrasing the next part, but it was like being an advisor here at this firm. We all met with him. We all felt a way about that. We were like, we have all come from careers. You didn't make us. So he made it seem like he made us.
They were responsible for your success.
They were responsible, like we were these poor victims. And that is when, first of all, I felt like color had a lot to do with that. The way he was trying to make us look like we were these poor cases before, we got
these poor Black women. But
these
for
poor
us,
Black women.
they would still be destitute and desolate. They would still not have, they wouldn't be professional. But for us, now they're able to make a way for themselves. So I was all about women empowerment. I went to him. I said, hey, I see that we don't have a support group here. We don't have anything that supports women of color, just women in general. Can I put together like a support group? And I told him when I got there, this is something I wanted to do. This is who I was. I wanted to go down that path of just, empowering women. I wanted to be an advisor for women. And he kind of told me that wasn't a good thing to do, to just be an advisor for women. So I kind of went away from that because that's what he told me, thinking he knows best for my career right now. And I got the women together. It was a monthly event. He wanted to be over it. So I allowed him, I allowed him to do that, thinking, okay, this is a new company. You're like, it's my boss.
Yeah, our first meeting, it was about 12 women. We met up at a local restaurant. He came to the event and to the women's group, and he just sat there. And it was very uncomfortable for everyone.
I'm uncomfortable. I have secondhand.
We were uncomfortable.
Discomfort.
It was very uncomfortable. So because you put Kenyata in the place that I can speak to her because she's my mentor, I expressed to her, and she's in leadership now. I expressed to her, this is very uncomfortable for everyone. I don't think he should be here. It just doesn't make any sense. He calls me into his office and he dances around it, but clearly I know he knows something. So he manipulates me into who did you say something to someone about something? So I'm like, no, because I'm the type of person, get to the point. And he said, yeah,
let's get to it.
And I'm like trying to figure out, is this man trying to manipulate me? What is he doing? So he finally says, if you have something to say to me, you tell me. You don't. This is what this man said. If you have something to say to me, you tell me. And then he said, you told, so he started playing this childish game. You told.
I've been there.
Yeah, you told her about, if you didn't want me there. I said, well, I'm letting you know now. It's uncomfortable. We would recommend, I would recommend if you just were not there. If I'm going to continue having these events, I would recommend if you're not there. I want the women to feel comfortable. He said, well, if you have this, you would have to be the person that reports to me. You have to report to me. Every conversation that's being had, everything has to pretty much filter through me. I was like, I'm not that type of person. I'm not going to break the confidentiality of women to come back and tell you. And I said, why is that? He said, well, in the history of this firm, women have been messy. So we do not allow women to have events without a male representation.
That is crazy to the top
I
crazy,
couldn't
like,
believe what
right
I
there
was
to the top.
hearing.
Isn't that I've been in that situation before where a man, if you will, and let's just keep it real, who does not look like us, and even if he did look like us, I would still have the same reaction, which is what you're not going to do is intimidate me with your words or
You're
your
not.
physicality. You're not going to do that. I had a scenario where my former news director was upset. I knew he was upset because one, he poked me to come into his office, which in that moment I could have physically turned around and done something, but of course I had to maintain my composure.
Yeah.
I was in the newsroom. I had to make sure that, I maintained who I am and stayed within my character. But I go to the room, to the office, and the very first thing out of his mouth was, "What's the beef going on between the two of us?" And I just
Wow.
sat there and I just sat there going, wow, here I am. How do I respond to this? Because I've never had anyone speak to me like that before. No one to one assume and allege that there's beef. First of all, who even says what's the beef going on between the two of us? Like I'll never forget that for as long
Yeah.
as I live because I'm like, are you trying to be down with me? Are you trying to speak what you think is a colloquialism to connect to me? And it was intolerable, unconscionable, it was egregious, and when I kept continuing to not force the issue, but be very clear in my response and reaction and very bold about it, I didn't
Oh.
hold any punches, then it was changing the story. Change the story. Well, what
Mhm.
about this? What about that? Well, I hear this about you. Who told you that? Well, they tell me that's a lie because I tell you right to your face, that's a lie. My work ethic is beyond stellar. So, what are you talking about? Why are you lying to me in my face about this? So, I understand that
Yeah.
spirit, that feeling when a man specifically is talking to you in a way that is demeaning and demoralizing. And honestly, going against the grain of who you are as a person and your
Going
character.
against the grain. And that is it brings me to another situation that probably for me was the most paralyzing. That
What
vision
happened?
statement that I told you about, that in the
Yeah,
beginning they have you write this vision statement. I'm like, oh,
right.
okay, they got you your purpose statement. That is, I'm thinking that's for personal use for
That's really
me
for
to
you.
refer. That's for me.
Mhm,
Um, so I had my one-on-one with him,
mhm,
and he called me into a room, and there's three white males in the room. There's three,
mhm.
not just him now. There's three. Oh, this is such and such. Another managing director from somewhere else. He's here to, just kind of look around and see how, because we were the top office. So he's trying to see how we run everything. So I'm like, okay.
Okay.
And then there's another individual that was, at another firm. And out
Mhm.
on the big projector is my vision statement, is my purpose statement for my life. So I'm sitting down and I'm like confused on like what could be happening here.
Right,
He starts
right.
running through my vision statement and
Mhm.
asking me about why I haven't I done this? Why haven't I completed this? Asking me questions about
In
why
front of people who
in
you
front
just
of
met.
people who I don't even know.
Don't even know.
It is when I say it was the most paralyzing, like
Mhm.
emotional, like it was like psychological abuse. Like
It
he was
is
trying to
abuse.
prove a point to them.
Mhm,
Like he
mhm,
had
mhm,
total control to
mhm.
just dissect our lives and call us out on things that had nothing to do with you. Some of my personal goals that had nothing to do with this firm, but you told me to put my personal information there as well as my professional information. And you use that against me in this moment to look like you're a god.
Yeah, it was a power move. It
It
was a
was
power
a power
move.
move.
Mhm, he
And
wanted to show off in front of his boys, if you will,
and I,
his
and I
sons.
don't think everyone was getting treated that way. Everyone wasn't getting treated that way. I think specifically he would do those things to women, to Black women. Kenyatta, I remember just countless times. At first it was just me and her in our one-on-one, and they were nice. They started out amazing, and then he started coming in. Then
Mhm,
he's just start sitting there with just his presence alone,
mhm,
and watching everything she did, watching everything she
mhm.
said. And I remember, because things had gotten so bad, so toxic there, I
Mhm.
asked her, she was a recruiter. I said, "Hey, we're recruiting more Black women. If we do, what is the um, what are we going to? What is the standard here? You
Hmm.
know, how can we make other Black women feel comfortable coming
Yeah.
into this situation? You know, what are we teaching? Here at this firm about how
Because you didn't
women
want
are
what
treated."
was happening to you to be experienced by new people who came in who looked like
Exactly.
us. Yeah. You wanted
Yeah,
to save them from that
I wanted to save
that
them
abuse.
from what was happening already in this place, and it was very
Wow.
toxic. He wouldn't allow her to speak.
I
Not even
literally have no words.
he
Did he
wouldn't let her
ever
speak. He said,
Wow.
"Don't answer that." Nope. He said, "I don't want you to answer that." I said, "I she cannot answer a question about us. Like,
Right.
she can't answer. This has nothing to do with you.
With you.
I'm asking her a question about how, we're supposed to be recruiting.
Mhm.
This is
Mhm.
a valid question." And
Right.
he didn't want her to answer. And I remember like us going out to lunch, and she was in full-blown leadership, and he had taken her out of that space where she can like really love on us. But I
Mm,
remember saying, "Hey, we got to change some things. Like, we cannot
mm.
allow him to. This is not leadership.
Yeah.
This is not leadership. He should
Yeah.
not be telling you to like not to do something or don't do this. You can't even speak unless he is the one in control of a conversation." It was just really, really bad.
So what were some of the other unconscionable moments? I mean, you were there for a year.
Yeah.
Anything else that just sticks out where you're like, "I'm so happy that I stood up for myself and walked away."
Um, I think one of the things that happened, I think all of us were so in the moment, we couldn't even stop it from happening. We had this, he got us all together. It was supposed to be a bonding experience for us. And we're all pretty new, getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And he has everyone stand up. Again, he has the managing partner of the firm, and he has the same guy from like out of town, come in again, and they're standing around, and they have like, I'd say it was about 10 to 15 advisors in that same firm. But of course,
Mm.
it's the three Black women there. I think there was two other Black males, but it was just mixed.
All the black people.
Yeah, it was white people as well, but it was
Okay.
more of them.
Mhm.
But he
Mm.
started asking us questions, and he wanted, if this pertained to you, to walk across the line. To walk across the line. The question started out real simple: whose favorite color is this or that? Then it got very disrespectful. Who has
Like
ever
what?
experienced whose household has ever experienced abuse? Whose household deals with depression? Who has ever caught the city bus? Who was told when they were children that they can't afford it? And then one that sticks out to my mind, and if there were people that walked that line, it was a lot. Like, one was like a Spanish guy, and then it was African Americans who was told, who was scared of the police.
Mm-mm. So my question is, what was the purpose
What was
of this
uh,
moment?
right after he looked at a female advisor, and he said, "I see why you go so hard." I think it was just to have control over us, just
Mm.
another form of manipulation,
Mental manipulation.
mental manipulation.
But how did that play itself in your life? Did you feel that way only when you were at the office? Or were you carrying that stress and that burden home to your family and your
I was
brothers,
carrying
to
it
your
home.
friends? Yeah,
I
what
was
was that like for you?
um I felt like I was losing myself.
Mm.
I felt like I wasn't living in my truth.
In part 2, LaTia shares more about what she calls workplace abuse that forced her to walk away, a choice she will never regret.